You are listening to the TV Obsessive podcast, brought to you by TVObsessive.com.
Okay, welcome back to the TV Obsessive Podcast. We're here today for episode 118. As always, my name is Cameron Crane, executive editor for TVObsessive.com. I'm joined by Ryan Kirksey, writer and contributor for the site. How you doing today, Ryan?
Well, I'm doing a lot better than a certain sheep we'll talk about later today. Can't really complain about too much of anything. Moving towards September and fall, one of my favorite times of the season. NFL's about a week away, so we're things are looking up.
Yeah, totally. I agree. The weather is, at least, yeah, it's cooled down a little bit here. I don't know how is it in Texas.
And actually, we are only low 90s, which is great for the time of year.
Is one of those things where you say it's a dry heat?
Yeah,
And,
yeah, no, not where I am.
not
In
where you are.
Houston,
No.
it is a humid, wet heat all the time.
Ah, it's a humidity that gets you. Anyway, it is August 27th. We're back to continue our ongoing coverage of Alien Earth. So hopefully people are watching that. We'll talk about episode 4 in the latter part of the pod today. First, as per usual, we'll talk a bit about what's been in the news this week. We got, a good amount of stuff to get through there. Um, as for what else we've been watching, we were talking before we got on. Not a whole lot. I mean, I'm continuing to watch Foundation every week, and I'm doing Invasion. I'm writing on Invasion. So, I am watching 3 weekly shows, which is
Yeah.
not nothing. And then, end up watching some YouTube videos and stuff like that. Nothing that really is worth mentioning.
Yeah,
Um,
I can run through all the fantasy football videos I've watched if we want. I don't think that'd be too appealing for anyone.
yeah, I don't think people are really interested in hearing about how I've been watching fantasy football videos to prepare for my
Yeah.
home league draft, which is this evening. So other things will come on the horizon. You mentioned football season starting. I'm looking forward to that. And we both do fantasy football, but this is a TV podcast. Can't presume anyone cares about that.
Yeah,
Football is TV though, so
that's right. That's right.
Um, a couple. Let's start with the King of the Hill being renewed. Speaking of things we've been watching, at least recently, last time we talked about King of the Hill, you hadn't finished the new season yet. Did you get
Yeah.
around to doing that?
Yes. Finally did. And I did want to ask your thoughts on this because there's some would we consider what we now know a renewal, or is this sort of they hid some things from us that are now telling us all their secrets after the fact?
It is kind of odd because the news, originally from Vulture, well, so we'll link to the Vulture article, although other places
Mhm.
have picked it up, does indicate that they've already made it. They've already made the new season, the next season.
Yeah.
So it is happening, has happened, so I don't know. It got me thinking about how, we've hit this era where it's like a season of television is 10 episodes at most, it feels like anymore. I struggle to remember the last time a show even went to 13. For a while,
Yeah.
a lot of times
Yeah.
they were going to 13. But of course, it used to be that they were like 22
Right.
episodes, So to what extent were they just like, well, we're going to make a full season like we used to, and then it's going to be cut in two? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, I'm hopeful that, yeah, I don't know. Does this mean that there's some chance that we get more Jonathan Joss as John Redcorn? I have no idea.
Yeah. I guess we should sort of state the facts here, which are Hulu released a 10 season episode, and it has now come out that they actually produced 20 episodes and are going to put the other 10 that are already in the bag, I guess, out as a second season at some point in 2026.
Right. That's what they're saying. So, and then, who knows? Maybe they'll make more.
Right.
Why
That's
not?
right.
Why not make more? I hope they do. Really enjoyed the new season, and when this was announced, poking around on social media and all of that, and so on. Actually, may have even been the author of this Vulture article. I'm not sure if I'm putting together handles with real names. Anyway, but someone was suggesting that they might or should also like air this on linear TV at some point. You
Yes. Yes.
because besides on the one hand, the news is, hey, they already have it in the bag, but the other part of the news here is that it's done really, really well. Like the ratings have been really, really good for this new season on Hulu.
Yeah, I mean the numbers keep compounding and rising exponentially as they add on more and more viewers and millions, and we're up to the billions of minutes watched now with this with this show. So yeah, I mean certainly I guess it's still Fox that they would air it on. I think there's a Hulu Fox sort of tie-in here that's how they've produced it. So I would certainly would not surprise me if they said, hey, we're gonna do sort of follow the model of a lot of the streamers and in the late fall, we're going to put all 10 of these, on one week.
I would. I don't know why not. Why not?
Yeah.
But anyway, fans of King of the Hill, if you still haven't checked out the new stuff, do highly recommend it. I enjoyed it a lot, so I'm glad to hear that we're getting more of that. Some other renewals. The Institute has been renewed for season 2. I wanted to mention this, right, just because we mentioned this show on here before, and it's on MGM Plus, and apparently season 1's doing quite well. So some people have MGM Plus and watch things on MGM Plus, and I don't know if we need to go into a whole thing again about how many different streaming services there are, but
So I'm glad that you put these two stories next to one another because when you read, say, for example, the Vulture story about King of the Hill, and it's just chock full of numbers and things that they put out in press releases and all that, right? I don't, when I look at this renewal story about the Institute on MGM Plus, don't see a single number of
yeah,
in terms of viewers or streams or minutes other than it's going to be an 8 episode second season. So yeah, I mean, I don't have MGM Plus, don't have access to this, but in terms of, I guess, perhaps the percentage of people who have watched it, it must be one of their best things.
yeah, they say it's doing well. MGM Plus has this, and they have From, and not at all trying to demean MGM Plus, but there's a lot of streaming services, and I think that the fact that it's on MGM Plus makes it fly under the radar a little bit. But worth
Yeah.
mentioning, again, based on Stephen King and so on and so forth, a lot of people listening might enjoy a show like this, and I
Yeah.
might enjoy a show like this if I figured out how to watch it on MGM Plus.
Right.
It's funny. I mean, it's like I don't know about you, but and certainly I think we have multiple streaming services and all of that. But we're writing on TV for the website and all of that kind of stuff. Any number of just like quote unquote regular people I know have like one. They're like,
Yeah.
well, is it
Yeah.
on Netflix? I have Netflix.
That's what I've got. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm still curious. I think that's all still kind of developing, and we'll see where it lands in terms of any kind of bundles or consolidation. But
Yeah.
yeah, Institute getting season 2. Another show we've talked about on here before is Death by Lightning. This is coming on November 6th. We got a release date. This is to Netflix. You recall this one? This is James Garfield assassination, Michael Shannon, all of that. Good cast. Man, let's check it
Yeah, I
out.
do. I do recall this. So this is, and I'm trying to remember if this group that put this show together, yeah, Death by Lightning about President Garfield. This is the same group that did something else. I'm trying to remember what I'm drawing it from. I know this is sort of a Benioff and Weiss co-pro or executive produced venture here, but I seem to recall that this group put another one of these historical fiction. Maybe this was the group that did the Lincoln show recently. I'm trying to remember. I may have that completely off base, but yeah, Netflix show coming in November about President Andrew Garfield.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't recall what you're referring to. So maybe try to look into it. But yeah, it's coming in November. So yeah, it's relatively soon. We'll be here before we
Yeah.
know it. A couple months. Um, what else we got? You have some things that I've just been writing down my list.
Yeah, no, several things that sort of caught my eye. There was some news. We are getting very close to the date when the Office spinoff, The Paper, is being released. This will be dropped. It was supposed to be dropped initially, part of the season on September 4th. Now they've made a decision to drop the entire 10 episodes on September 4th.
Yeah,
There is some thought that yes, this might later go into NBC, depending on how it does on Peacock, but always, think we like to speculate. Why change this close? Are they thinking this is not going to do well? Do you think, oh, we want to get this in front of everybody because we're hearing good things behind the scenes? What are some reasons why you think we might change from sort of 2 or 3 to start and then the rest every week to we're just going to push it at you all at once? I know the Marvel side of that, when they do that, it's because they think it's awful, but I don't know if that's what Peacock thinks.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's almost like fully in one direction or another that my mind goes, right?
Yeah.
My first thought when I read this was like, oh, it must suck.
Yep. Yep.
You know, they're just going to drop it and you're like, you don't remember that happened.
Yeah. Never happened.
You know what I mean? But then reading this Hollywood Reporter article about it, um, I think that's well, actually, you anyway. I might have read a different article, but notice we've got the Hollywood Reporter that you put on there. But anyway, when I was reading about it, they're at least saying they're spinning it along the lines of everyone who's seen this thinks it's really good, so we want to get it all out there,
Yeah.
and I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe, but uh, I mean, I continue to think in general that you create more buzz and hype for a show putting it out on a weekly basis. And sometimes it
I
does happen the other way, where it's a binge drop and it still gets that buzz, but
Yeah, I tend to
feels
agree with
risky.
you on all of that. I do wonder if they look at sort of demographics of people who watch The Office now, and it's younger generations that are finding The Office, binging it all at once, and think, okay, well that might be how they want to consume a show like this. We'll give it to them all later on for those that are the more we want to watch it week to week. If they want to wait, and maybe in October we'll put this up on NBC, assuming we get good news from this we can. But that's just speculation at this point. Really, we don't have any behind the scenes intel of why they're doing this.
Yeah, it's we probably wouldn't be speculating as much if they hadn't changed it kind of last minute.
Exactly. Very
The
last
fa
minute.
the fact that it's a binge drop, okay, but why did you at the last minute decide to change it from they were going to put out multiple episodes the first week and then go weekly, one of those things.
Yeah.
But why did you decide to change it from that model to a full binge drop?
Yeah.
Um,
I would be very curious to know what someday just how these streamers make these decisions. I mean, clearly Amazon has this thing. They're going to do it. They're going to drop it. Maybe it's cut into 2 parts. They're going to drop it all at once. Others, I'm thinking more like Hulu or FX. We're going to do these week by week because we know how good they are. We know what the conversation is. But I'd love to see some behind the scenes data sometime to help them make these decisions.
yeah, because my impression, right, is that they're kind of fumbling around in the
Yeah,
darkness. They don't
exactly.
really know what they're doing on this front, right? It's like, of course, you've got the traditional model of putting episodes out weekly.
Yeah.
And so some places just do that and say, hey, we're HBO, we've got a good thing going. You're going to get one episode a week on Sunday night,
Yep.
you know. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have Netflix, which I think was really kind of the originator of, hey, we're going to give you the whole season of this new show at once.
Yep.
And that's kind of the expectation for Netflix, who was really kind of innovating in the space when it comes to streaming services. So as these other places get involved into streaming, some of them are thinking like, oh, well, the binge model works for Netflix, we'll copy that. And then
Yep.
I almost feel like sometimes it's some weird compromise they make of saying, we'll put out 4 episodes and then go weekly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, as you were saying, I would be really curious if there's any data out there at this point, because it's been several years now.
Right.
But I think the big wrinkle in interpreting any data anyway would be it's always a different show you're talking about, right?
Exactly.
So how could you could take every show that had a 2 episode premiere versus every show that had a 3 episode premiere or something like, but they're still different shows.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. I mean, whatever. I complain about this sometimes, but really what I wish is that they would just do it in a way that serves the show.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if it's all at once, okay, we can always deal with that, even though we don't particularly like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
If it's weekly, 1 episode a week, I think we can always deal with that. If you're going to do a 2 episode premiere or something like that, does it make sense in terms of
Right.
serving the show?
Right.
Because I
Yeah.
remember I think Station 11 was really the one where I felt like the way they didn't really serve the show the right
Hmm.
way. It was like putting out pairs of episodes, but because they started with three, it always felt like the wrong pair. I don't know
Yeah.
if anyone else feels that way. Um, anyhow, enough on that. We'll move forward. Um, some rumors that Nick Cage might be in True Detective. What do you think about that?
Yeah, this is an interesting story here. I mean, clearly they have in the past what I guess they had 3 seasons now. They have tapped Matthew McConaughey and Vince Vaughn and Jodie Foster and some of the biggest names in Hollywood. And Nick Cage, who's had a little bit of an indie film revolution lately, is apparently the latest is going to be tapped to do a next season of True Detective, which will bring back Issa Lopez, it sounds like.
Hmm.
I'm just trying to sort of square the circle of him playing a Matthew McConaughey or Jodie Foster type detective on this show. And maybe my just mind just hasn't quite grasped how that will work. I will certainly be tuning in, but yeah, just can't quite get there yet.
Well, he'd have to be his own distinct character. They've
Yeah.
always had some pretty big names. You left some out. Even like season two, whoever
Mm,
was in season two.
that's right.
um, was Vince Vaughn was in season two? Stephen Dorff.
Steve Dorff.
I was just
Right.
thinking last night, when True Detective season three, well, that's the one, right, with Stephen Dorff.
And
Um,
Mahershala Ali. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, which I thought was a good season, and recall talking about the Dorfissance. I'm afraid it didn't quite happen. I saw a YouTube ad last night featuring Stephen Dorff for all natural toilet paper.
Oh no.
He was sitting on the toilet the whole time
Uh, After,
talking
yeah,
about.
he done so well with yeah, he had True Detective, then right on the back of that he had a couple seasons of Righteous Gemstones.
Yes, he did. That's right. That's right. And he's fine. I mean, like he's great. Like I gotta get too down on him for being in a toilet paper commercial, and it was just like thrown in there. YouTube shows, at least me, it shows me all kinds of weird low budget ads, and it like felt almost of a piece of that, but it was Stephen Dorff. Um, anyhow, Nick Cage, big fan of Nick Cage personally. I don't know about you. Although I think it'd be fair to say that his oeuvre is varied. You know, you
Yeah, I would
could
certainly say varied. I would say diverse. I think he can have sort of a steely, cold and dark demeanor about him, which, again, depending on your season of preference for True Detective, it could be any of these things. So it's it's probably not going to be the wild and crazy Nick Cage, where we're going to get some kind of version that's a little I don't know, more brooding might be the right word.
maybe, you
Yeah,
know, who knows? Yeah, which Nick Cage are we getting?
yeah,
It could be wild Nick Cage. We don't know what his character is. You don't know with this rumor that it's going to be that he is the, lead detective,
that's true.
even,
Could be a killer. Yeah.
um, so I'm there for it. I think of Nick Cage. But of course, I mean, we're gonna watch True Detective anyway.
Oh
So
yeah. Oh yeah.
hopefully we get some more news on when we might get that. Another thing that we will be watching, well, in general, at least, I'll be watching the traitors, and I know I got you into it as well. So I think it was maybe even last week we were talking about how they're going to make a normie version of the US traders. They're also making a celebrity version of the UK traders. Now this
That's
would be
right.
with British celebrities.
Right.
So looking at the list, I did recognize a couple names, but um, it's coming in the fall to the BBC. I'm not seeing any news about it being released in the US, but I'm presuming this will show up on Peacock at some point.
I would think, yeah, maybe early 2026. And so I had a question for you, which is, would you consider the US version that we have seen on Peacock the past 3 seasons, would you consider that a celebrity version of Traders that they do for the US?
I mean, it's like D list, but yeah, I
Yeah, so I
guess.
just found it interesting because they're reality stars. They are uh, so these reality competition TV winners and losers. I just found the sort of the difference here being in the US version, they're playing for keeps with the money. The celebrity UK version, it's playing for their favorite charity. Right. So it's sort of this sense of is there what we must be dealing with a higher level of celebrity in the
Yeah.
UK than we are in the US.
Yeah, I think that is the case. The US version has been, is the reality show star a celebrity? I mean, you kind of, again, you have to say yes,
Yeah.
but not like an A-list celebrity.
Yeah.
They've had a couple athletes and so on. So yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to check out the celebrity version of the UK traders. Do you think the show's going to wear out on us at some point, Ryan? They're
That's a good
making a lot of the traders, it would seem.
that's a good question. So now are we going to get two versions of US and UK every year? I could see some needing to spread it out over the over a year, which would be fine with me. You don't have to burn it all out in January and February. We can at least, even if they're released, then we can spread out the viewing pleasure, of course. But yeah, if we were watching four versions of Traders over the course of 3 months, I could see some real
Yeah,
burnout happening there.
I'm definitely not burned out yet because I'm still like,
Yeah.
if there were another season of the Australian or New Zealand version, I would watch it. Looking into that, I don't think they made them, so
Okay.
it's not just that they're not available, but um, now I'm not positive about that. It was like something I looked into a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Check that I don't think that they exist. I don't think they've been produced, whatever that's worth.
Would you say that they got the Dexter Original Sin treatment? No, they were not renewed. We never heard anything about them, unlike Dexter Original Sin.
Yeah, I mean, I don't follow Australian or New Zealand TV renewal announcements closely enough to know. I kind of like those versions though because they were different. They were in a different
Yeah.
location, and they almost felt smaller, like some
Yeah.
of the I don't know if you watched them, but some of the challenges were almost like play a game of cards. It was kind of but yeah, Dexter. I almost forgot to talk about Dexter. I think this is related to the merger
Okay.
um, between Paramount and Skydance, because if you recall, it wasn't that long ago that you had like the top brass at Paramount Plus saying like we want to make as much Dexter as possible,
Yeah. Yep.
and so they made the prequel for one season, and then after the season, they did announce that they were going to make season two.
Right.
So the news this week is that's been unrenewed, or canceled, however you want to put it. And they're not going to make any more of Dexter Original Sin. Um, they are making Dexter Resurrection, which is currently airing. Andrew Crevis is writing on that for TVObscast.com if you want to check out his articles. And it seems like he's enjoying it. It seems like it's good. It seems like it's doing well. They're going to keep making that, and but they're not going to make the prequel anymore.
And
Which
are they still making Dexter New Blood? That's the other one, right?
that was almost like a mini series.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, but I mean, the answer is yes. It's just a titling thing.
Okay.
Okay, so the narrative continuity goes from Dexter to Dexter New Blood to
Okay.
Dexter Resurrection,
Okay.
and then
Okay,
Original
that's the
Sin.
okay, that's the sequence of events, as it were. Okay, so this is sort of Resurrection is in the line of those others. I don't know if that was a continual. So like New Blood was a started and ended property.
I mean, it was supposed to be at the time. I mean, I feel like there's some need to withhold information a lot because they would be spoilers, but at the same time, the name of the new show is
Right.
Dexter Resurrection. I think you can read between the lines, So there was definitely the thought that the ending of New Blood was definitively the end,
Yeah.
but then they decided to continue with a show called Resurrection. Yeah. You get the implication.
Yes, I do.
Um,
Yes, I do.
the only other thing I want to say about this is I did watch, I think, the first episode of Original Sin, and I've been thinking about the new stuff because it sounds like it's fun, but I haven't kept up. So it's not really coming from a fandom perspective, but part of me when I read this just thought, I don't think you're allowed to do that. Like, I don't think you should be allowed to do that, you know? Like, announce that something is renewed and then, should be like, no take
Yeah.
backs.
Yeah. I don't know how that works in terms of what they were committed to, or I mean, we've learned in the past few years that even if you've got something done, made, produced, ready to go, you can just pull it. So who knows how far down the line they were with all that.
Yeah, and from what I've read, I haven't seen anything that got to the level of detail. Um, so I'm speculating here. Um, that I don't think that they had really done anything, but I'm wondering
Yeah.
if they'd even like signed contracts with anyone and maybe not. And I feel bad for the people involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
The writers, the actors, all of that. If they thought they were going to make more of the show, it's kind of like saying, oh yeah, I'm going to hire you for a job next year, and then come here and we're like, no, we're not doing that anymore. But you told me that we didn't sign a contract. What do you want with
Yeah.
that? So I don't know. It does bother me on that front, but so it goes, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, last thing I want to touch on before we get to the alien universe is just what was intrigued a little bit by a new Apple TV Plus series that's going to be coming uh, in late September called The Savant with Jessica Chastain. The reason why I was curious about this is because it's taken from what's a really interesting piece of investigative journalism from Cosmopolitan magazine called "Is It Possible to Stop a Mass Shooting Before It Happens?" about this woman who sort of on her own would dive into groups and conspiracies and or dark places online to try to stop some sinister things before they would happen. And so they've taken this story, and the person who was on it is a executive producer and developed this show called The Savant with Jessica Chastain. And that's a really good piece, and recommend that anyone read it. But the show looks like just at least to me, through a trailer, very run of the mill, just like political crime conspiracy thriller. And I don't know, it just seems like you put too much of the action in it, not as much of the like investigation, what happens when a person gets down these holes and gets involved in these groups. Maybe that's there, and they just want to sort of
Mhm.
grab you with with what's going to happen in the show. But it's a very interesting concept, and I hope the show lines up with what actually is this is inspired from.
Yeah, we'll have to actually check it out, right? Because with the trailer, maybe they're just throwing the action of the trailer. Maybe the
Yeah.
show actually has more to it that you're looking for. You put me in mind of something I didn't put in our notes, but something similar. There's like an Amanda Knox show
Yes.
coming
Mhm.
out, I think, and that also from just seeing ads for it or whatever seems almost too glossy to
Yeah.
me. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I was like, I don't think this is a. Hmm, I don't know.
This is about some pretty gruesome murders, and yeah, yeah,
And I mean, she's gone through it with all of
yes,
that. I don't know. If you've seen in her public statements or on social media or anything in the wake of all of that, and of course, it's one of those things where people still think she did it, all of that.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, just that the ads though seemed like slick. I'm like, I don't know if
yes.
the tone feels right, but we'll see. You have to watch the actual show.
That's right. That's right.
So we'll see. All right. Speaking of watching the actual show, let's get to Alien.
Yes,
We're up to episode 4. We're halfway through the season now, actually,
that's right. That's
because they
right.
give us these short seasons. Anyhow, spoilers will be on the table here for everything through season 1, episode 4 of Alien Earth called Observation. We'll put in a little bit of music here and be back with you in just about 10 seconds.
Okay, we are back to talk about Alien Earth, Season 1, Episode 4, titled Observation. This episode, I'm going to butcher some of these names, apologize in advance, written by Noah Hawley and Bobak Esfarjani, and directed by Ugla Hauksdottir. There, in this episode, again, titled Observation, there's a lot of observing and experimenting going on in the Prodigy labs with all the hybrids and aliens that they have running around. Wendy learns that she can hear the xenomorphs and that she can translate what she's hearing into a frequency that humans can also hear. Kirsch and Toodles allow the eye monster alien to infect a sheep, which increases brain function and adds intelligence. And at the end, Wendy sees the lung that is implanted with the xenomorph larva. It explodes, releasing the baby xenomorph into the lab, but Wendy is able to calm it down and begins to communicate with it. Nibs believes that she is pregnant. She shares that news with Dame Sylvia with some devastating results. Joe Hermit tries to quit Prodigy because of how Wendy is being treated, but Adam tells him that he'll be charged for his new lung and never get to see his sister again if he leaves. Meanwhile, Morrow continues to communicate with Slightly, which Kirsch is able to observe, and tries to convince him to come up with a plan to steal the xenomorph eggs. Morrow then resorts to having to threaten Slightly's mother and tells Slightly he must lead a human into contact with the eggs. And it looks like Slightly identifies Joe as the one that he wants to do that. I certainly say Observation was a good title for this. We're sort of watching a lot of things being maneuvered and experiments happen and people being positioned in certain places. So, not the battle or the exploratory scenes of the last three episodes. What do you think of this one?
Well, I mean, I thought it was good, and I continued to enjoy the show. There were maybe some moments where I don't know, I made a face or something, and I can't
Yeah.
even remember what they were. Like, I didn't make a note of them. So take that as you will. I didn't necessarily think it was as consistently great as the first three, I guess, just as it came
Hmm.
across to me. But maybe part of that is what this episode is doing. Maybe part of it is just, well, okay, I can remember one. The running thing between Morrow and Slightly, where I don't know. I mean, I guess it works. But I almost feel like I have to squint a little to say, okay,
Yeah.
I see what the show is doing in terms of Morrow manipulating Slightly, but it doesn't always land for me, I guess. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah. Interestingly, some of the stuff I liked most in this episode was, even though I think I was on the border of sort of complaining about it last week, some of the Lost Boys, the Wendy, their interaction, even how Slightly was corresponding with Morrow, just sort of um, the sort of childish naivete and what's going to happen here and what are we doing and just sort of all those different nuances of how they interact. I actually enjoyed a lot of that this week. Interesting to see some stuff that's going on in the experiments. And mainly just made me very curious about what Kirsch is going to do, what Morrow is going to do, and how, even after his conversations with Kirsch, how devoted Slightly is going to be either to his fellow Lost Boys and Prodigy or to Slightly now that there are some potential harm that could be done to his family. So I was mixed, I would say, on this episode, but enjoyed the interaction amongst the Lost Boys and sort of what they were doing in this one the most.
Yeah, and I do. I mean, to clarify what I was saying before a little bit, I enjoy the interactions and I enjoy Morrow. I think it's more, let me put it this way. Once we get to the point where Morrow is threatening Slightly's family,
Hmm.
then it's like, okay, yes, of course, I understand why this kid slash hybrid would do whatever Morrow's asking,
Yeah.
right? But before that, going back to like the beginning of their interaction, like the
Yeah.
first time this scary guy starts talking in my head, why wouldn't I like run to Kirsch and tell him about it? And it's like, I guess I can just swallow that. And yeah, kids sometimes do make that kind of decision. It's not totally implausible, but I think it was more at that initial level where I was feeling a little bit um, bothered or whatever the right word is in terms of how things were progressing, because it's like it's clear they're doing this to serve the narrative of the show. Does it really work in terms of believing at the beginning of their interaction that Slightly would keep it a secret as opposed to, running and telling a quote unquote adult?
Yeah. I think that's a good point because I think it's between episodes 3 and 4, they have 4 or 5 different conversations, Morrow and Slightly, sort of about more trying to build trust, trying to learn about who Slightly is, what he's doing, what he can do for him, what he wants him to accomplish with and so it's this sort of long build up to the point where, yes, we get to Slightly is not exactly doing what Mora wants. He has to resort to going to the family and threaten him. But along the way, along all those conversations, why, to your point, didn't Slightly go, tell someone about this? Or why is Kirsch seeing this, but not really intervening and sort of putting a stop to it? I'm very curious about that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go in that direction since we're here. Kirsta, I don't, at least in this episode, Kirsch does not do anything to stop Slightly.
Right.
Right. He's totally observing this conversation where Moro is telling Slightly to get a human being and take them to an egg and get the face sucker on their face and all of that. Kirsch knows all of that.
Yeah.
Doesn't do anything. Do you think he will?
I do not think whatever is about to happen, I do not think Kirsch intervenes. And I think about it in terms of what humans are we dealing with right now? First of all, is Adam a human? I think that he is.
I believe so.
Okay. So we're dealing with Boy Cavalier, Adam, Dame Sylvia, the other male scientist that I can't remember his name, and Joe. I don't think Kirsch has a problem with any of them.
Yeah.
Getting thrown to the mouths of the eggs and see what happens to them. Even Boy.
Yeah. Dame Sylvia's husband. That was another moment. They just like threw that in there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they're married? I didn't know they were married. Why are we
I didn't
suddenly
either.
learning that
I
they're
did
married?
not know that either. No.
I didn't make a note of his name, but that's the guy who was in Fargo, the actor, whose name I also don't know.
Yeah. Arthur Sylvia. Is there Dame
Arthur
Sylvia and
Sylvia.
Arthur Sylvia?
Sorry, yeah. I don't think Hirsch is going to stop Slightly. Which I do think is funny. And Kirsch is really an intriguing character to me. But as a synth and putting him then in kind of conversation in my mind with what we know about David and Ash and how they behaved, it just kind of seems like Kirsch might think that would be interesting to observe.
Isn't it funny how I thought the exact same thing, that everything I think of about what Kirsch is doing and what he might do going forward, I think about it in the context of what I know about David and Ash and what they hid from people, what they tried to do, what their missions were. Just, I guess, assuming that, yeah, Kirsch is going to follow that path and be the same thing.
Right, which may not be the case, right?
Right,
We shouldn't make too
exactly.
big of a presumption. But I do think that he's really well done. And so many things in terms of the vibe and the tone of the show are so well done.
Yeah.
I did listen to the first episode of the official podcast. I don't know if you had a chance to check this out at all.
I have now done the last three, yes.
I only listened to the first one, but they were talking to Noah Hawley, and I'm just thinking now about some of the things he said about how, kind of along these lines of recreating the vibe, the tone, this sort of, so like it feels like Alien. I mean, I guess it's just putting words on something we already know, because it's a similar thing with Fargo, right? Where it's not like it's Fargo because it's in some direct connection with the movie, but it kind of feels like the movie.
Yeah.
And he's doing the same thing here and doing quite well. The other thing I thought was interesting in there, we've talked about the other alien species, and his line on this, that the reason we have them is because everyone already knows how the xenomorphs work.
Right.
Right. So like when you're watching the first Alien film for the first time, you don't. Right. So it's like, oh, there's this facehugger thing. Oh my God, something came out of his chest. Oh, what? No, there's and that in a certain way he's trying to repeat that sort of experience.
Yeah.
At some degree with like the eye octopus and things like that, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
Line on it and makes sense now. I really feel like I get the idea at least of why those things are there.
It's that tracks with the official podcast for this current episode for Observation, talks with the director and some of the special effects people about, in particular, the eye octopus alien and putting it into this this sheep and how much they wanted to not just make that sort of a gory body horror, almost humorous thing, but just sort of show the dread of what happens and the horror of what happens after it accomplishes what it's supposed to, and just the unknown of what's going to happen next, right? Talk about having this animatronic sheep that they could teach to cock its head, sort of make it do things sheep would not normally do, just to make you sort of throw you off a little bit, and how they're just trying to really put you into the unknowns. It was, yeah, pretty interesting to learn what they're trying to do there with these things that we have not seen before, at least before this series.
Right. And so it would seem like if that high octopus continue, so it seems like it's now in control of the sheep,
Yeah,
and the sheep is now way more intelligent
right.
because it's no longer the sheep, it's the parasite,
They're
you
saying
know.
problem it has problem solving skills now or something based on what they're seeing in its brain. Yeah, so that's very interesting to see what's going to happen next.
And then, of course, you can't help but imagine, like, what if that got into a human being, and
Hmm.
the horror, well, whether it happens in the show or not, it doesn't even have to happen. It just already plays in your imagination. And so I think that worked well ultimately. There are a couple other species we haven't seen, we'll probably see a bit more of.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
don't know where things gonna get loose. But yeah, I was thinking, you mentioned the scene at the end. I know we're jumping around a bit, but Wendy goes in and she's looking at the lung, and it's just sitting there in like this glass tube. I was like, well, that's not going to hold the xenomorph, man.
No,
Um, and I enjoyed how the show immediately was like, well, of course you're right, Cameron. Just
yeah.
that's right. Blast right
Not
out.
even any resistance, just like shot out of that, like it was going through a piece of paper or something. Yeah, I mean, just we're not gonna like let you in the episode seeing it sort of swim around in there. Oh, what's gonna happen next? No, it is loose, and we're ready to go.
Yeah, and I just thought that was really amusing because in the moments leading up to that, I literally was sitting here thinking, well, is it really strong glass? Is it
Yeah.
reinforced glass? Could it be strong enough somehow? Because I mean, I don't think Hirsch is stupid.
Right.
You know what I mean? But to the fact that pretty immediately it just busts out. It was, and again, we have Kirsch observing,
Observing.
not intervening. Wendy, pets the xenomorph on the head. Cute little
Hmm.
xenomorphy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Thoughts about that? And I guess let's talk a bit more about her relationship with
Yeah.
the xenomorphs and what we learn about that.
So obviously that's tied to the first scene of the episode where they are
Yeah.
trying to work with her to figure out how she's communicating, taking what she has heard, translating into something that they can understand or use or adapt to humans. So there is clearly this connection there. And based on our conversation from last week, I've not gone back and watched, but I have read several people say that we might understand this a little bit more if you and I do go back and watch Alien Resurrection. That there is something there that
Okay.
would give us a little bit more sense of how or why this could happen. Now, obviously, there's nothing to do with hybrids in that movie, but there might be something to do with the connection. So that is, I mean, it's sort of the unanswerable question at this point of there's clearly this ability to not only communicate but also to relate to and empathize with the xenomorph between Wendy and this creature. What does that mean? And what does it particularly mean if Slightly is going to try to get Joe involved with this whole thing? Boy, I just it's tough to speculate on what Wendy's role is going to be here if she can communicate with it, but also she has, like the sense, some kind of connection to it. We've thrown around the idea of being empathetic to these things. Is she for these? I don't really know at this point.
Well, I mean, she's petting it at the end.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of, they're making friends, kind of, which is interesting. I can hardly speculate. I
Yeah.
mean, because you bring in the idea that Slightly's going to try to get Joe face hugged.
Hmm.
And so then, okay, there's a question there. Does that happen?
Yeah.
If that does happen, then I think we would go one way. If it doesn't happen, it would go a completely different way, right?
Yeah.
Um, then there's the other question of, well, what's going to happen with this xenomorph that's now loose in the lab? can they contain it?
Yeah.
Will they contain it? How will they contain it? How might Wendy's relationship with it develop?
Yeah.
And
That to me
then
is the most interesting thing in the context of, does it develop into a strong relationship? Does it end up being a stronger relationship that she has with her own brother at some point, if it comes down
what?
to it?
Yeah, so I was gonna say, how do these things intersect,
Yeah.
right? Um, would it end up being a stronger relationship than with her own brother? I don't think so.
Right.
I think she really, 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 really cares about her brother. I mean, like they've established that over and over again.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, lots of questions there.
Yeah.
And
I do think, to your point, they have established so much about that bond and connection that Wendy and Joe share, and they have established that over and over again. They've established it again in Joe's conversation with Adam about, when does she get to go home? You'll never get to see her again if you leave. That's inevitably what keeps him there. How strong that bond is, probably to set up something later so that there's some choice that has to be made between saving him, what's happening with the xenomorphs. It just sort of seems to be slightly telegraphing that. I'm not mad at it, but I just think that's probably what's coming.
yeah, what I think is interesting though is I still don't think it's predictable. To
Right.
jump to another moment in this episode with Nibs, where maybe we want to talk a little bit more about how she thinks that she's pregnant.
Yeah.
But what I was thinking of at the moment is throughout that whole scene with Dame Sylvia, I mean, there was a moment where I seriously thought Nibs might kill her.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Like that would have been a narrative possibility. You can almost imagine them in the writer's room going like, okay, so does she kill her? And
Hmm.
then they decide no, and then all right, well, this is Garden of the Forking Paths. You know what I mean? It's like you've made that one decision, and now that has implications for where the story goes from here. But I think there's kind of a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, what decision do they make in terms of what happens with the xenomorph? What happens with slightly, you know?
I thought that was a really good scene. I think I was looking up her name, Lily Newmark, who plays Nibs. Just fantastic job of performance in that scene in particular. And she's had now three episodes: the episode where she's attacked by the eye octopus alien, the episode where she is sort of questioning her sense of self and what she is, and now this one with this conversation about being pregnant. She was part of the official podcast this week and talked about how much she sort of is being influenced by a child that would have gone through the trauma of being attacked by this thing, and how she's trying to help that influence her performance of what she does here. You can certainly see that come out here, that she's, how it necessarily connects the feeling of that she thinks that she might be pregnant, but she's sort of transferring that trauma into wanting to have something she can protect, something she can hold on to, something that she can, be a part of. Just very different, but three very good scenes from this character so far.
Yeah, I agree, and it's really interesting because so she's sort of gone off the rails.
Hmm.
Let's dial it back to thinking about their experiment with the hybrids, which is what they're supposed to be doing, right?
Yeah.
Then no, now there's these aliens, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, that on the one hand you've got, well, there are a couple of them where I would say things are going pretty smoothly. Curly and the newly named Isaac,
Yeah. Yeah. Who
self-named Isaac.
loves his science experiments. Yeah.
Wendy, we mixed bag, right?
Right.
Slightly, he's being manipulated by Morrow. That's a problem. Smee, he's just kind of a kid who wants to play games, so far it seems like.
Yeah.
But then Nibs, this is not going well, right? And we don't see what happens after that scene, but clearly Dame Sylvia has like initiated some kind of protocol in reference to Nibs because of how Nibs has behaved.
Yeah.
I think fairly,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Really.
oh, it's almost
She
snapped my neck.
leapt on top of her when it was about to, yeah, to your, what you said earlier, about to kill her.
Yeah, having delusions, so some kind of containment or whatever, something might almost lead in the direction of deactivation. I would imagine
Mhm.
they would use a term like that. Um, would that be killing a person? We approach those sorts of questions potentially.
Yeah, I love the potential parallel of you can't keep these xenomorphs caged up for long. What happens if, because I've seen the speculation is, Vibbs is going to go under house arrest basically in her room. We put her in a situation like that and she is not going to go for it. What happens if you keep one of these new beings that you've created under that type of locked up? Will it have the same reaction as say a xenomorph would if you tried to contain it?
Yeah, or yeah, at least something similar or parallel or resonant or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, it's a cool thing that they're doing. Um, let me take the opportunity to lump in that question, which Adam, which is spelled like like particle, not
Yeah.
atom, has
Atom.
with Joe. At least saying they want to keep Joe around as a part of their attempts to answer this question of whether they successfully transferred human consciousness into synthetic bodies
Yeah.
or whatever. I forget exactly how he puts it, but it was clearer to me with exactly how he put it. So I almost wish I'd made a note of the words he uses, because what really struck me, perhaps because of my philosophy background and everything, was like this is an empirical question, really. It's more of a metaphysical question of is the is it a person? Is it the same person
Yeah.
meaningfully, right? I guess you could have the idea of um, someone like Joe observing Wendy
Yeah.
in terms of data of, well, like, how much is she like Marcy? Are we getting that sort of resemblance?
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, I don't think any amount of empirical data could really resolve that question. You follow me there? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think I know where you're going with that. I think back to the scene where I think it's Wendy first tries to reveal to Joe who she is, and in some ways have to prove to him that she is his sister. And the sense of he's come in a pretty short time from being completely sort of flabbergasted at what's going on here to understanding that this is who she is. But yet you can't know that. You can't, to your point, prove that. I mean, you could try to do a lot of things to replicate some of the things he might know about his sister, but there's no way of sort of proving any of this stuff or knowing that, oh, they have quote unquote succeeded in making this being something that represents the actual person. There's just no way for Joe or even Prodigy, the people building it, to know that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to say almost if she takes herself to be the same person and everyone else also takes her to be the same person, she's the same person.
Mhm.
But that's as far as you can go. Am I
Right.
making sense to everyone here? You know what I mean? Like you can't it's not like you can open her up and go like, oh look, there's the soul. We
That's
transferred the
right.
soul. Or no.
Yeah.
So she has the memories if she acts like the same person, but then of course, precisely because she is now a synth,
Hmm.
also she's not gonna act exactly like the sick child that she was before. You know what I
That's
mean? So it's
exactly right.
almost just
Yeah.
I think it's almost it's more a matter of whether we decide that we're going to take this to be the same person
Yeah.
or not. Right. I think like one of the lines that's in there somewhere is like, or did we kill sick kids? Forget
Yeah.
who says this again.
Yeah. The worst case scenario is we killed six is. Yeah, that's exactly right.
I was watching that and I thought, well, it's like, well, you did.
Yeah, so I don't know what the perhaps the worst case scenario was that's exactly what happened.
Like, but you did kill the kids. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you also managed to effectively copy their consciousness into synthetic bodies,
Yeah,
and you could take those to be the same consciousnesses, the same
yeah,
persons. We can make that decision that we're going to take it that way. But this is the point I
yeah,
hit on in one of our previous podcasts, right? It's like I think it should be pretty clear that if they hadn't killed the kids, then you'd have distinct persons. Like if Marcy was still alive,
Yes.
I don't think you could argue that Marcy and Wendy are the same person anymore.
No, no, certainly not. Certainly not.
But insofar as Marcy dies and Wendy has the memory of being Marcy and takes herself to have been Marcy,
Yeah.
then maybe it makes some sense to say it's the same person. It's really,
Yeah.
really this is sticky philosophical stuff. Like we're not resolving this. The show's not resolving this.
Yeah.
It's like but it can provide a lot of food for thought in relation to that kind
Absolutely.
of problem about personal identity.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea that, I mean, there certainly have been some significant themes. We've talked about some of these before about corporate greed, about capitalism, about others that have existed in the movies prior to this. But yeah, he's exploring some pretty deep and important themes and messages in this show, in addition to just, yeah, I want to introduce you to this world and what happens when you introduce aliens to it, which I mean, I think is this has always been sort of a calling card of Noah Hawley, and so far I think he's doing a good job of it.
Yeah, agreed. So let's talk about that a bit more before we wrap up because it really does kind of come out in this episode. It's always silent, kind of there in the background, but it comes out pretty explicitly in this episode.
Yeah.
Some of those themes of exploitation and so on, right? Like telling Joe, hey, you can stick around and work for us, or
Yeah.
you can go home, never see your sister again, and be saddled with a massive medical debt for your prosthetic lung. Totally free choice, man.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, like that kind of thing, or even what they've done with the kids to make the hybrids. Of course, we haven't seen interactions with their parents or whatever. Presumably, someone signed off on something, maybe at some point. Maybe I don't
Yeah.
know. But even if they did, you're still in the structure of exploitation. I think to the degree that does it make sense to say that the kids freely decided to become the hybrids?
Yeah.
And but then further, now that they are, they can't leave. You know what I mean? Like you have
You
Adam
can,
telling
yeah.
Joe, like, under no circumstances are you quote taking your sister home.
Right.
You know, um,
I do think that one of the most interesting unknown pieces of this show, we know what they did and we know how they did it. Other than just a few brief comments about wanting to solve immortality, we don't really know why they did it. We don't know why they were given certain powers, why they were done. Um, I guess why they wanted to create these in the first place, other than just to say, well, we could put a child's consciousness in here, make sure it works, and people can live forever. Okay, that's the reason. But for someone like Boy Cavalier and these corporations that run everything, it seems like there would be a lot of other motivations to do this besides just hopefully eventually we can live forever.
well, and that's part of what I wonder in relation to some of the comments that occur in this episode. If they're supposed to be focused on the hybrid experiment or have you, um, is there a plan down the line in the relatively near future? Is there supposed to be like a public unveiling?
Yeah, yeah,
Is this going
yeah.
to,
They're gonna do a product launch of some kind. Absolutely.
right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. And then, so, hey, look what we did. Now, pay us huge amounts of money,
Yeah,
for it to become like more of a consumer product. So, are we going to see that? Is the story going to progress that far? Is that going to be part of the story? Is something I'm really curious about.
yeah,
Bearing in mind their profit motive and all of that. And in relation to that, one other question I just want to pose to you, and I'm sure we can talk about this more later because it runs through the series, but it goes all the way back to the first film. Why do they want the xenomorph?
yeah.
What is the purpose? What is the like corporate interest
Hmm.
in the xenomorph and then now also these other species? Thoughts about that?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's been the question since the first few minutes of the first movie. Yeah. What is the point of these things serve? And you can speculate about things. You can speculate that they have, how they have evolved, how they survive, that they have certain healing properties, that they have certain things that they can do in terms of their defense of themselves and how we can adapt some of those things. But they've really given zero clues to that in this show. And maybe we'll never know that. It's just a sense of also, were they looking for these things specifically or explicitly, or this is just what we found along the way? And so we want to come see what we've got here. I don't
Yeah,
know that we know from any of the properties that we have those answers either.
yeah. I mean, I think you could almost take it as a symbol of that impulse towards technological innovation.
Yep.
Excuse me, without a preconceived purpose or goal.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, and that definitely be one way to take it. That from a certain mind frame, you look at the xenomorph and go like, "Ooh, wow!"
Yeah.
You know, let's find out more. You know, where might this go? What might be possible? You know, as opposed to having a preconceived sort of notion. But I don't know. I just found myself thinking about it again because clearly one possible purpose could be war or, you know, as
Mhm.
a weapon of some
Yep.
kind or something like that. Um, biological weapons, whatever. Um, but then that intersecting with the kind of interest that we see from Boy Cavalier and Prodigy in general and so on. I guess I just got thinking about it again. I don't know if that
Yeah.
there is a definitive answer or that there will be, but
And one thing I
I wanted
hope
to
that
raise the question.
we get down the road is the what is the outcome of pushing aside the plan that you had in place of whatever you're going to do with these hybrids, right? You wanted to create them, train them, mentor them, get them ready for something, launch them a certain way. Now, in a sense, they've almost been pushed aside in pursuit of this other just sort of technological innovation or understanding or exploration. What happens when you discard the thing that you're working on? That's this new, innovative, sort of, I mean, for lack of a better term, this sort of hybrid product where you don't exactly know what they're capable of, what they can do, who they're going to be, and they have some sort of sense of consciousness inside them. So when you discard them and leave them off to the side while you go explore what xenomorphs are there some dire consequences of doing that? I'll be interested to see if that happens in this season.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know if I think they're going to discard them.
Yeah, we only have 4 episodes left, so
Lots of things are possible. Yeah. So here's another question we can go ahead and raise now for the first time. There are 4 episodes left. I know from things that I've read that Noah Hawley at least has the interest in making more than this one season.
yes, yeah, yeah,
Um, I recall reading some things. It was also referencing Fargo, and it was like, is there going to be more Fargo? Well, it kind of depends on how Alien goes. And if
yeah,
Alien
that's
goes
right,
well and we're making Alien, then there might not be time for Fargo, or
right,
it might be a while before there's more Fargo, whatever, right? So anyway, there are definite indications in the world that he wants to make more seasons. But
yes,
speaking of Fargo, that's an anthology show
no, that's true, yeah,
by season, right? So if there are more seasons of Alien Earth, one thing to maybe start thinking about a little bit is whether that would mean a continuing story from season 1 to season 2, or whether Alien Earth would also be more of an anthology within the Alien universe. Certainly that'd be possible.
yeah,
We're told there's like 3 other giant corporations out there we know
that's
nothing
right.
about, and so on and so forth.
That's
Right.
that's a great point. Exploring a different corporation each season. Wow, yeah, that would be fascinating.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm definitely enjoying the show. Um, anything else you want to say about this one before we wrap up?
No, I think that's pretty comprehensive. Episode 5 is titled "In Space, No One dot." So I think we're going to be back in the action scenes next week if I'm predicting from that title.
Yeah, probably. I mean, you could fill in the blank, right? It's supposed to be no one can hear you scream,
Right, right.
right? Um, which was just like the tagline on the poster, I believe.
I think that's right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it definitely entered the zeitgeist or whatever.
Yeah. And
Um,
interestingly, the pilot and this upcoming episode are the only ones solely written and directed by Noah Hawley. So, for what that's worth.
okay, so we not put too much pressure on episode 5, but
Yeah,
it sounds like an important one. Um, all right, well, we'll leave it there. Thanks always for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do leave a good rating, review, all that good stuff on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Greatly appreciate it. Hit the thumbs up, like, and leave comments, and that would be cool too. I'll reply to comments, or I'll try to anyway. You can follow TV Obsessive on social media. If you search for TV Obsessive, you should find us. And check out TVObsessive.com. We have written work there, publishing regularly on any number of shows currently. We're covering Peacemaker, we're covering Dexter Resurrection, Foundation. I'm writing on Invasion. Maybe that's about it at the moment. But we also have a bunch of stuff on older shows, so please do check out the site, and we'll be back with you next week.
All right. We'll see you next time.